7 years ago, Jen's forest ranger father went into the woods and never returned. Now, as an adult, Jen is working in forest conservation herself and is doing surveys into old stand wood. She has put her past and her hometown of Barrow in Washington behind her until she gets a text message from one of her old school friends telling her that her father's remains have been found. Convinced that this is a mistake and that her father is still out in the forest somewhere alive, Jen returns for what is supposed to be his memorial service. As she gets into the old town, nothing much has changed apart from the fact that there are less people and some of the houses appear to be abandoned. After meeting with her old school friends, one of who is her ex-boyfriend Chaz, who also happens to be the heir to the local logging empire, they suggest some kind of pilgrimage into the woods where her father's remains were supposedly found, to have a camping trip to pay respects to him. Everything starts to take a sinister twist, however, when one of their party goes missing and they start to discover odd objects that have clearly been staged in places that they shouldn't be. Jen also starts to realise that Chaz might have some ulterior motives for heading off on this camping trip, and despite trying to lose them all, things take a horrific turn and they are stuck together. Gretchen McNeil has leaned very heavily on eco-horror and folklore to create something here that is incredibly atmospheric, claustrophobic, unsettling in all of the best kind of ways. Right from the beginning, you can tell that it's been incredibly well researched. Her descriptions of the woods and all the details that she goes into, it's just phenomenal, and it really sets the vibe for the whole book. This forest, it feels ancient, it feels watchful, it almost feels sentient before the horror fully escalates. There's this creeping sense throughout that the characters are invading somewhere that they are very much not welcome, and it only becomes more oppressive the deeper they travel into this wilderness. This whole eco-horror thing is very effective. It taps into something primal, this fear that nature is not passive, it is not forgiving, it is not controllable. And she has done a great job of using isolation, strange sounds, folklore, and this feeling of being hunted by something that you don't really understand. So it draws from Scandinavian mythology, folklore, horror traditions, which just adds to the eeriness, amplifies this supernatural element. After I finished reading this, I did go and research the folklore behind it. I won't say too much about it. The horror becomes increasingly strange and surreal as you progress through the book, especially in the second half, when the forest transforms from an unsettling backdrop into something that is actively threatening. It did take a while to get started. A lot of the beginning is spent on Jen's kind of personal dramas, awkward reunions, this anger, these memories, old relationships. It's very much an internal monologue of Jen. But once the group actually goes into the forest, it starts to pick up pace, and even though it takes patience, you do realise that the payoff is absolutely 100% worth it. Jen as a character, she's cynical, she's sharp-tongued, she's messy, she is quite unlikable. She comes across as deliberately cruel and immature, and although I do think this is probably a very purposeful attempt to make her flawed and show you that she's flawed and emotionally damaged, it worked for me, but it might not work for others. She might come across a little bit abrasive. The author did an amazing job of tying these deaths into the environment and not just making it some kind of slasher movie style kills. A lot of it is very physical horror. There is a lot of gore. There are some very genuine and disgusting descriptions, and it just fits so perfectly with the book's whole theme. While there are a lot of environmental themes within this book, the author has very carefully woven these in so that they don't come across as being preachy and they are relevant to the story. This conflict between conservationists and logging companies makes it much more real life relatable, and makes the supernatural elements all that more kind of unsettling. It is a book that has a great deal to say about our relationship with nature, how we exploit it, and how we just assume that it is there for us to consume it. Incredibly atmospheric novel. It succeeds so well because of the intense vibes, this truly creepy setting. It is well and truly a slow burn, but that just intensifies your sense of dread the further into the forest you go. And I, for one, will not ever be mean to the trees.